Welcome to another segment of provocative conversations destined to provoke further thought and spark greater questions regarding God, church, and the religious establishments of both the past and the present. I am the proud heretic, Mr. Provocateur himself. Hello, I am the proud heretic, Mr. Provocateur himself. I am continuing on with the divine generalities of this pandemic season. Just some general things that you need to know regarding this season. Or on August the 22nd, 2020, I began to record what was said to me. In relation to this pandemic period, you are moving into the next phase of this period. In this phase, things will intensify. Things will be intensified during this phase. You will see matters worsen. Matters will worsen during this phase. Things will get darker. Things will become darker throughout this phase. Things will be heightened or will heighten in this phase. You will begin to see issues at hand become more intense. People on both sides of the issues will become more intense in their stands. They will become enraged on both sides of the argument. September, that's 2020, is a pivoting month. September is the pivotal month of this season. September is the month where this period will pivot. We've already just gone through September. We've already began to pivot. September will begin the beginning of the end. September will begin the beginning of the end. Understand, as I stated in an earlier recording, that when the end is being talked about, it is not talking about that book of Revelation type end that people want to always refer to. September will begin the beginning of the end. September will begin the ending of many things. September will bring an end to many of the things that people have become accustomed to. September will begin the downward trajectory of this season. The downward trajectory of this season will be felt in September. The downward trajectory of this nation will be clearly seen during the month of September. And if you look back and you think of the news that has been covered now that we've gone through the month of September, you will see the downward trajectory of it, and you'll also see the defining of this season that came forth in the month of September, how it defined and began to clearly spell out to us what we're apparently heading into, whether it's relative to the virus, whether it's relative to schools, whether it's relative to the business or the market world or marketplace, or whether we're talking about the economy, the healthcare system, violence, death, the presidential election, the civil unrest, civil war like setting up that is occurring. It all became more vividly clear in the month of September, and by the end period of September, the news and politicians and generals and all began to play out all the different scenarios of what they feel that we're most likely heading toward from the aspect of the president and these factious groups and all. But anyway, the downward trajectory of this nation will be clearly seen during the month of September. September is when things will begin to move downward. September will begin the sliding slope of this season. The sliding slope of this season speaks to the way things will shift during this season. The month of September is when you will begin to see the shift. During the month of September is when you will begin to see the shifting of events. The month of September will present the most obvious shifting of this season. September is when the people will see and feel the shifting that is taking place in this season. September will be a month to remember. September is when you are to brace yourself. September is when you are to brace yourself for what is coming. The aggression will pick up tremendously. The people will become more aggressive. People will become more aggressive in their positions. They will show their aggression through violence. We had several people killed in the month of September in relation to their, political stands or just personal views or whatever. Whether it was people being ran over by vehicles, people being burned, people being hung, people being burned, set on fire, people being targeted and beat, people being literally killed in the streets over their views. They will show their aggression through violence. This is the phase where violence will begin to spring forth. This is the time for the violence to spring forth. You will see violence spring forth from every front. People will begin to express violently. People's aggression will be expressed through their violence. This is the time for aggression to be expressed. This is the season where aggression must express itself. Again, this is the season where aggression must express itself. This is a season of aggression. Aggression is the key to this season. Aggression must be expressed. Aggression must express itself during this season. The people's aggression must express itself, for there is divinity within the aggression of the people. Their aggression is divine. Their aggression is ordained. The people's aggression must express itself. The people are ordained to express their aggression in this period and season. The people are showing forth their divinity. The people are showing forth a portion of their divinity. The change, capital change, the change requires the aggression of the people. The change demands the aggression that the people are presenting. The more the aggression, the more the change. The change demands aggression. I said that this is not a period of passivity. I told you that passivity would not have its place during this season. Passivity is not the key to this season. Passivity is not for this season. This season is not going to put up with passivity. The people of this season will not put up with passivity in this season. This is a phase where new forms of violence will take place. Violence will show forth itself in new forms. Every front will be faced with a new type of violence. Such violence will not have been heard of within the United States. The United States is not prepared for the violence that will begin to spring forth in this season. The police will not be prepared for such violence. The type of violence that will take place will not be able to be controlled by the people or by the police. The police will not be sufficient for the violence that will begin to take place. Their strength will not be sufficient. The election will spark greater aggression. As the election approaches, things will get much worse. The election will be a mess. It will be a messy scene. The election will become much more aggressive as the people begin to express themselves. Things will go awry during the election. Things will get very ugly. You will see blatant injustice. You will see every form of injustice come forth during the election. You will see injustice of every sort spring forth in relation to the election. You will see violence on every front. You will see violence at the polls. Now they're saying exactly what God stated to me. They're now saying this on the news. They're expecting it and they're talking about it. And some of the individuals who are in some of these hate group movements on the side of white supremacy or groups that tend to be Caucasian, you see them coming out, putting videos out even on YouTube of what they're coming to do at the polls or on Instagram. You will see violence at the polls. The polls will be filled with violence. You will see people targeted for their votes. People will be violently targeted for their votes. The violence during this period will be overwhelming. Many voters will be afraid to vote due to the violence. Now we're knowing that that's what it's becoming. The violence during this election will be historic. This will be the most violent election that has ever taken place within the United States. The election will not end the violence. The violence will not end after the election. The election will only be the beginning of the violence. This meaning the election is only the beginning of what will be. The violence will spread beyond the election. The election will only increase the violence. The election will only spread the violence. Things will begin to get scarce during the month of September. The supplies will leave the shelves during the month of September. You will see supplies no longer available. Food will begin to leave the shelves. You will see the food supply dry up. You will see the food chain come to a halt. I don't know if all of that part is supposed to happen in the month of September or what. I'm not sure. But in my human thought processes, I would have thought. I know that I don't live in every place. I'm not omnipresent, so I don't see what's going on at the top of the food chain, inside of manufacturing places that deal with food and all. I don't know the ins and outs and the actual exacts of what is occurring. I personally have yet to see these things, but the inner workings, the behind the scene workings, they know best what's actually happening, even if I don't know it. So I'm just saying what I heard. You will see the food chain come to a halt. Shelves are being emptied. You will see shelves completely emptied. I don't live in a metropolitan area or whatever, so I'm not sure how things look elsewhere. People will begin to be evicted We saw this heavily in the month of September. Now, people will begin to lose their homes. People will be homeless. People will be sick and homeless. Whole families will be homeless. Whole households will suffer homelessness. There will be a record number of homeless people. The systems will be weighed down by the homeless. The homeless will weigh down the systems. Very little regard will be shown to them. The weight of the healthcare system will be greater than any season or period in history. The healthcare systems will be overwhelmed by the sickness and deaths due to the virus itself, which will not leave space for other health issues. There will be no assistance for those who have other health issues. The sick and the dying will overload the system. The health system will explode. The health system will literally explode from within. The systems will crumble due to the sick and the dead. The numbers of both the sick and the dead will be insurmountable. The numbers will be too great for the systems to withstand. The healthcare system will lag in its health care. People during this season will die due to the other illnesses that will surface due to the virus and other medical issues. This will be a sad period for the healthcare system. The virus has not reached its end. The end of this virus is not near. The virus has a way to go before it ends. The virus will continue to spread and ravish people. As I told you from the beginning, this is a long and rough period. This season is in no way short. This season has just begun. There is much more to go in this season. Death will come in many shapes and forms. You will see death in numbers unheard of. The number of deaths will be frightening. Death will not be able to be tallied. Death will have a toll that has never been tallied. Death will reach beyond its all-time tallies. Death will reign during this period as in no other period in history. History will not have a recorded record to equal this season of history. Death will ravage communities. Death will reach into every community. Death will run through communities in ways that have never been heard of. This is a period for you to stay enclosed. This is a period for the people to stay in their homes. It is now time for the people to return to their homes. This is not a time to be out in the streets. This is not a time to travel. This is a time to remain at home. This is a time to prepare. This is a time to be prepared. Those who are not alert to this season are going to suffer. Those people are going to suffer worse than anyone. Those who are not in tune to this season will be caught with surprise. The surprise will cost them. But those who have prepared, those who have been awakened, will do well during this season. Those who have prepared will be equipped and ready for what is coming. But those who have not prepared will suffer greatly. Elections all around the world will spark violence. Violence will show itself throughout the world due to the elections. Elections will be revolted throughout the world, but nowhere like the United States. The United States will top them all. The United States will be a disgrace to the world. The world will see the United States as a disgrace. The world will see the nakedness of the United States and be embarrassed for those within. The United States will be a mockery to freedom. Freedom will have no face. Freedom will lose its face for a season. Then freedom will have a new face. Freedom will be defaced but then freedom will be refaced. On August the 25th, 2020, God spoke some things to me. November will be another pivotal month. Things will pivot once again in the month of November. I have not read this since God gave this to me back in August, and we're not in the month of November, but we're coming up on it. In some weeks, things will pivot once again in the month of November. You will see the atmosphere pivot. Things will intensify to a greater extent in November. Things will go up even a greater notch in November. The atmosphere will be set for the elections. The elections will set the atmosphere in November. November's energy will be like no other. No other election will have the energetic charge that this election will have. The atmosphere will be set by the people of the November elections. The atmosphere will be charged with the energy of the elections. The energy of this season will help to shape the next century. The election will fuel an energy that will take you through to the next century. The universe will ride off the energy that is being generated in this season. The universe will use the energy of this season to bring forth the change that is necessary. The energy of this season is to be respected. The energy of this season is not to be despised. The energy of this season is not to be disregarded or overlooked. The energy of this season is what is going to bring forth the change of this season. The energy that you see will bring forth the change that you cannot see. The change will come from within the energy that you now see. The universe will respond positively to the energy of this season. The negative energy that you are seeing is going to bring forth the positive changes that you are not seeing. The negative energy bringing forth the positive change. Isn't that something? This season will increase in its energy. The energy in this season will show forth itself in a negative sense. The negativity in this season will cause things to be dark. The negativity in this season will overshadow this season. Things will appear as being dark throughout this season. For the darkness of this season will obscure or cover the positivity of this season. The darkness of this season will obscure or cover the positivity of this season. Because of the negativity of this season, the positivity of this season will not be easily seen. The positivity of this season will be obscured in the darkness of this season. Do not let the darkness in this season overwhelm you. Do not be overwhelmed by the darkness that will appear throughout this season. The darkness during this season will not overshadow the positivity that this season will bring forth. Do not get overwhelmed by the darkness of this season. Do not let the darkness of this season overwhelm you. Though there will be overwhelming darkness during this season, great light and positivity will come forth from this season. The light that will come forth from this season will shine forth from within the darkness of this season. Darkness producing light. Isn't that something? The negative will attract the positive. The negativity, the negativeness of this season will attract the positive changes because of this season. Just as unlike charges attract each other, the negative of this season will bring forth the positive charge or change from this season. The negative will give charge to the positive. The negative in this season will bring forth the positive of this season. I had to go look and deal with the relationship between negative and positive when it comes to science or physics or math or what else would that be? Electricity. If an atom has more electrons than protons, it has a negative charge. Particles with like charges repel each other. Particles with different or opposite charges attract each other. So no wonder the negative is attracting the positive. The positive is attracted to the negative. When we look at this divine pandemic season, we see the negativity, but what we don't see is all of the positivity, the positive changes that are occurring as a result of the pandemic. The pandemic is necessary. God said to me, let balance be established in you. Let balance sustain you. Be balanced in your approach to the things of this season. Be balanced in your perspective of things. See this season through a balanced eye. See this season from a balanced perspective, needing both the negative and the positive. Approach this season with in a balanced way. See that you maintain a balanced approach to this season. Now, it is not balanced to speak all peace, and it is not balanced necessarily to speak regarding the so-called doom and gloom of this season. Yet at the same time, the doom and gloom, if you want to call it that, of this season is what it is. Jeremiah had to speak forth those hard things. His message was rough. It was hard. He did bring forth that there will be a change, but he had to lay out what God was saying. And God was rebuking the prophets who were speaking peace and saying that none of this other stuff was going to happen. So there has to be an approach. There is light coming at the end of this tunnel. This season, there is change that's coming forth. But before the change comes forth, you're going to have a lot of this other stuff out here. And it needs to be put out correctly. And then we need to look at this season in a balanced way and saying, all this negative is going on, but all of this positive is going to come forth from it. Now, that's going to take people's faith, you being able to see in the midst and throughout everything that's being dangled before you in the sense of the negative side of it, or it looks negative. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look enticing. It doesn't look desirable. And a lot of it isn't. It isn't desirable. Yet at the same time, you have to be able to see the positive that's coming. But there's a lot of negative that's coming, and people don't want to hear the negative. And I just lay it out there. We'll have balance, and we will do balance, because I do believe in balance. And that takes maturity, and that takes concerted effort and conscious awareness of both the negative and the positive, because the two come together to produce the needed effect, whether it's electricity or change. So, on September the 15th, I think this was the last time up to this recording that God spoke to me regarding this matter or this time period. This is a messy season. The change that is occurring is not attractive. For change is not always attractive, but is sometimes messy. This is a season of messy change. The change that you are in is messy. It is very messy, and it will get even messier. The changes that will occur in this season will be messy. The changes of this season will include the changing of mess. Messiness is occurring in this season. Mess is being changed in this season. The mess of this season requires the messiness of this season. Do not get distracted by the messiness of this season. Do not let the messiness of this season distract you from what is occurring in this season. The messiness is only occurring due to the mess. The mess created the need for the messiness. What we're seeing out on the streets is the messiness. What we're seeing in politics is the messiness. What we're seeing in the economy is the messiness. What we're seeing in the healthcare system is messiness. What we're seeing in the legal system is messiness. But the negative mess, the negativity is only due to the mess. And the mess created the need for the messy approach. The mess created the need for the messiness needed for the change. The negativity of the mess has brought forth the positivity of the messiness. The negative mess is producing the positive messiness of change. The corruption brought forth the change. We needed the corruption that was going on. It brought forth the change. The injustice brought forth the need for the change. If it wasn't for the corruption, we would have never have gotten to the exposure that's bringing forth the change. If it wasn't for the injustices upon certain races and other things throughout our systems, if it wasn't for the injustices of the healthcare system, of the legal system, of the financial system, if it wasn't for the injustices of all of this, light wouldn't have been shown in toward the need for all of that to be changed. You would have never seen the brokenness, the deception of those systems. The deception brought forth the season, or this season of exposure. If it wasn't for the deception, you wouldn't have need for the exposure. See, the deception of man brought forth this season of exposure. There would have been nothing to expose if the deception was not there. It took the deception being there, the negativity, for the exposure, the positivity, because it leads to change, to come forth. The darkness brought forth the shedding of light. Light could never be appreciated or desired if darkness were not present first. It all attracted the other. All of what was occurring brought forth the attraction to the change. We are in the attraction to the change. It all mandated the need for change. Everything that we're going through mandated the need for change to occur. It was quite obvious that change was necessary. It was quite obvious that we needed to change. And God got us over into that change. We are now over in that change. We are in that period of change. It is so necessary for us to understand the generalities of this season, the divine generalities of this season. If God wasn't so intertwined into this season, we would not be able to appreciate or even accept this season. It's only in knowing God, in knowing and understanding what he's doing in this season, that we come to respect and accept this season in our lives. This is not an easy season, but it is a necessary season. This is not a season where we get to go to Disney World and party, but it's still a good season to be in. This is not a season that we want to fight against what is occurring, but this is a season where we want to submit to what is occurring. We want to submit to the pressures of what is occurring. That's what we should be doing. That's where our mindset should be. Our mindset should be focused on what God has promised us over the years and what God is doing through this season to get us into those things that he promised us throughout the years. Good topic, necessary topic. Good season, necessary season. We accept the topic, we accept the season, and then we move on to the next topic. It's been good hanging out with you, talking to you and teaching you, and then you hearing what is being said. What good does it do if you just hear it, but you don't apply it? So I appreciate those of you who are hearing it and applying it as well, because it is a matter of life and death. It is a matter of drowning under the pressures of this season or maintaining your upward mobility and floating ability above the circumstances and situations of this season. Whatever it may be, just know, as long as you are doing what you need to do in order to get into not the graces of God, but get into the heart of God and to receive revelation regarding what route God wants you to go specifically and personally, how God is pulling you, where God is pulling you, so that you can get with the pull and not operate against the pull. All right. Well, that does it for this particular topic. May you continue to grow. And may you continue to listen to the recordings further, because this is just one segmented topic, subtopic of the matter. And just know that the hand of God is in this season, that the hand of God is working through this season, and that the hand of God is not to be rejected by you in this season, knowing that God is in this season, knowing that God placed this season before you ever began. Thank you.